Welcome back, everybody, for another deck profile list. And this one is a little bit different. So we're doing Betty today, but it's not your typical Betty. This is a deck that I kind of put together after playing around with, normal or traditional Betty list and adding my own kind of touch to it. And now let me explain the reason why I'm doing this. Well, if you play Betty, then you know that her playstyle is obviously very aggressive, but one of the things that I do not like about Betty is just the fact that you have to discard so many cards, either to activate your triggers or to defend your characters, and by the mid to late game, you really have no cards left in your hand. So I started thinking, well, what is one way that I can possibly mitigate that? And that's kind of where this deck list comes from. So I'm combining the Revolutionary Army package and the Sky Island package and creating this, what I call like the Betty Sky Revolution package. So let me go ahead and just explain my choice picks. So I think one of the strong advantages that Betty can have is, playing a bunch of, the Belo Betty, the Searcher, that cost one, playing a lot of them early on, and then discarding a Revolutionary card and giving those Bettys +3 and attacking for 5. I think that's a really strong play. So I started thinking, well, what if I focus a lot in the early game on cards that search, so I can keep adding cards to my hand so I don't lose card advantage, while also building up a board that can, take advantage of Betty's leader ability. And that's exactly what I did with Shura. And he kind of brings this whole Sky package together. So in the early turns, I focus a lot on searching with Betty and with Shura, building up my hand and building up my board at the same time. And as we all know, this is kind of like a Sakazuki Anno meta, and a bunch of these little guys can probably be KO'd, especially very, very easily by Sakazuki, but with Eldor too, if you're playing into Enel. And I think that's perfectly fine, because those are just resources that your opponent is using against a bunch of little guys. And as you can see, there's, bigger threats that this deck can produce. And having your opponent use their resources on the little guys is perfectly fine. And if they don't do anything with the little guys, then this deck can just use them and turn them into kind of a weapon. So that's kind of the whole idea of where this deck comes from. And so, in the rest of this video, I'm just going to talk about the kind of the strategies and how the mulligan goes, what you want to play, the early and mid game, and kind of how to win. And I'll also include some gameplay so that you guys can see. And I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you do, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. Alright, so let's talk about the mulligan. So you want to open off, like I mentioned earlier, with your searches. So Belo Betty, Shura. You also want to have like a Holly and a Ohm potentially in hand, because that's also a very strong second turn play if you're going second. So if you're going second, generally speaking, you'll kind of do like the whole Sky package, the Sky Island kind of turn. So you'll play Shura on 2. Look for either a Holly or an Ohm. If you already have one of the other, then you complement, you search for the other half. And then you play Ohm, and you double summon, you summon another Holly. And you're just building up a board. That's one way to kind of open up your turn. So mulligan for Shura or Holly or Ohm is perfectly fine. Another way that you can do your turns is by playing Belo Betty. If you go first, that's probably the best play that you can do on your 1 Dawn turn. Play Belo, you search for a Revolutionary card, and on your 3rd turn, you can just attack with your hero. you're not trying to be too aggressive early on. You're just trying to focus on building up a board. So on your second turn, if you go first, you can play a Shura and another Betty. That would kind of even out your curve. Or you can just play a Holly if you don't have anything. If you don't have any of your searchers, you can play that. Or just another 3-drop, which is, I think, is Morley. I think the Revolutionary card. I don't know if that's the exact name, but you can play that. So yeah. So the mulligan for that is look for your opening searchers. Look for the Holly and Ohm combo if you can. But that's kind of what you're trying to mulligan for in preparation for your early game. Okay, so let's actually go into your early game, your 1 of 4 dawn turn. So going second, I think this deck wants to go second because that gives you 2 advantages. First advantage is that you take the first hit, and this deck still runs triggers. So the best case scenario is you take that first hit from your opponent, you trigger, either a Shura or another Revolutionary card. You play it, and generally speaking, at this point, you probably have 2 to 3 characters already, just by going second. If you don't trigger anything, it's perfectly fine. But if you're going second, you want to play Shura and prepare for your own turn. That's the strongest play that you can possibly make, because on your 4 dawn turn, if everything goes right, you can have a Shura, you can have an Ohm, and you can have a Holly on board, and potentially another trigger card or 2, right? Because when you're going into your 6th dawn turn, you would have taken at least 2 attacks, if not more, because there's more aggressive decks out there, especially like a Rush Zoro that can, squeeze in an extra attack in there. But going into your 6th dawn turn, you could potentially have a full board if you go second. But as always, sometimes things don't go as planned. But if you can get a Shura, you can get an Ohm. Even if you don't get a Holly, an Ohm is still really strong, because if you take damage and you're down to 2 life or less, an Ohm just becomes a 6k attacker, and that becomes really useful against like Whitebeard or against Luffy, red purple Luffy. So even then, just playing the Ohm without having a Holly or being able to search for a Holly, I think it's perfectly fine. But yeah, so 1 to 4 dawn turn, open up with Shura or open up with Betty, or multiple. If you have like 2 Shuras or 1 Shura and 1 Betty, I think it's really good just to open, like, use your dawn to build up your hand and build up your board with a bunch of little guys. That kind of puts the pressure on your opponent. They have to like make that decision of whether they're going to commit resources to clear a bunch of little guys that could potentially hit for like a lot of damage, or just counter out when the turn comes, when you can use the Shuras and the Bettys with your leader ability. So either way, I think you're taking up resources from your opponent, either them trying to answer your little guys before the attack, or them answering through counters when you use Betty and Shura when you attack. So that's kind of like the opening start of the game. You just want to build your board, and using the little guys while getting the card, I think it's a big advantage. Okay, so mid game, let's say you were successful in putting out a lot of Shuras, a couple Bettys, maybe you triggered something from life and have an extra card. If you're going into your 4 to 6 dawn turn and you have a board, then this could be a really good chance to kind of use your leader's ability and just swing. You have 2 options, right? So let's say you have a Betty, a Shura, and 1 other card that either you summoned, like another Betty, or something that came out from life. You have 3 cards on the field, and you're going in on your 4th dawn turn. This could be a good opportunity to kind of test the waters um, by using your leader abilities just to see what your opponent has in hand. So with those three bodies, you can simply use your leader ability, discard a revolutionary card, give everything 3,000 attack. So both Betty, if you have a Betty and a Shura, that would just put them at an even 5,000. If you have another card, a second card like another trigger, let's say like a Morley or a Lindbergh, that's an 8,000 attacker right there. Um, at this point, I think using your ability to attack just to get either free life from them or get cards out of their hands is perfectly fine without committing too much of your own Dawn, because you can still use either that 4 Dawn or that 5 Dawn to continue building the board after you attack. So if you attack with like the Betty and the Shura, 5,000, 5,000, maybe another 5,000 with your third body, or another 8,000 depending on what it is. Um, your opponent will either like take 1 life or 2 life, discard a card, or like, take 1 life, counter out of 2. Just depends on what your opponent has in hand. But in this situation, you're kind of at an advantage because your Shura and your Betty that have already kind of searched for, like, added a card to your hand and that are generally speaking pretty weak, you're now using them, as a weapon to poke at your opponent. And so even after you attack and your Bettys and your Shuras go back to 2,000, your opponent has to use their kind of leader or other characters to attack a Betty and a Shura, and that kind of really feels bad. And they have to do this because your leader ability just gives them an extra 3,000 every turn, for not for free, but without committing any Dawn. And the extra Dawn that you don't use, you can just summon. You can summon like a Karasu or an Ivankov or a Lindbergh or an Ohm, right? Or any other kind of 4-drop card that your deck has. And these are good 4-drop cards, right? These are like Karasu, like he minuses a leader or a character by 1,000 power. That's really good. Ivankov, that's another really good card. He lets you just continue building up your board. Or Morley or a Lindbergh, they can help you get through blockers or KO little stuff. So these are like mid-game cards with good abilities and that you can still play after using your leader's ability and buffing up your little guys. So that's like the best scenario that you want to create from your early game into your mid game. And if you're able to do that, you have a huge advantage because you're only dropping 1 card, right, to buff up potentially 3 characters, and then you're swinging for 3. You'll probably get one. You'll for sure get 1 life out of them, out of your opponent, and 1 card probably from their life, maybe 2. But either way, all of that at the cost of just 1 card, and you still use your Dawn to develop your board. So that is, I think, really good. And if you're able to do that, it kind of sets you up for an easier kind of late game matchup. Now, after your 4 to 6 Dawn turns, you're kind of now stepping into the late game. And the late game for Betty, it's more of a mid-late game because Betty doesn't want to drag out the matches too long. And that's because, well, traditionally, normal Betty lists, they don't want to drag out the matches too long because when they get to like 6 or 7 Dawn, the cards in their hand are practically, non-existent. Just because, they're discarding to summon a character that they got from life, or they're discarding for their leader ability, and they have almost no cards left in hand. This deck, you don't have that problem too much. It's mitigated. It's less of a problem, is what I'm trying to say. But you can still potentially have that problem because you are still discarding with your leader ability. The good thing, though, is that the triggers in this card don't make you discard a card. Most of the triggers most, not all of them, the revolutionary cards do make you discard a card to play them. So you can potentially still find yourself in that situation. But, you know, if you've played correctly in the early and mid game, when you get to 7 Dawn, you can start playing your Enels, which is a rush card that is very sticky. That is hard for your opponent to KO, especially Sakazuki. And having an Enel on the board kind of also gives your Inazuma, which is the Revolutionary Rush card, an automatic rush because Enel's already at 7k. You don't need to invest more Dawn or a leader ability into something else to give that another character 7k. Enel just already has it, and you can just play your Inazuma and buff those and just attack for even bigger swings. You also have the 200,000 volt event card from Sky Island that helps you get through blockers and buff up your cards for an extra 3,000 attack. So that's also a tech card that I included in this deck to kind of help you close out the game. And even if they don't have a blocker, you can still use is it 200,000, 2 million? One of those. You can still use this card just to buff up your character by 3,000. By 3,000, and this card only costs 2 Dawn to activate. So you're essentially kind of using 2 Dawn to gain 3,000 attack. So you save 1 Dawn that you can use, to put on another different card, another different character to attack with, or just activate something else. So, but it's still a very efficient card, and it has a really nice trigger too. It can potentially save you by giving you an extra life by discarding 2 cards from your hand. But yes, when you get to the late game and you still have a board, you do have kind of a decision to make, and especially if you have like an Enel or a Sabo in hand, you have to think: is it better to continue like swinging, like using your leader ability and not use any Dawn to buff those cards even more, or use your leader ability, attack with the extra 3,000 that your leader gives, and then use the remaining Dawn to build up a board? That decision kind of, or the answer to that question, will just depend on the state of the game that you're in. You have to look at your opponent's hand, how many cards are in their hand. You have to look at the board, whether if they have a strong board that can potentially attack into you and kill you the next turn. There's a lot of different factors, right? But the Betty's ability is really efficient in terms of the Dawn that you use to power up other cards. But again, Betty's still kind of like a glass cannon. What I like about this build specifically is that you still have a lot of 2k counters. You still have the Satori, you have the Beige, and you have the Koala. You have 11 2k counters, which is a lot, but those 2k counters each have a purpose. Satori, you can if you trigger him, you can play him. That's another extra body on the board. Beige, Capone, like you can stop an opponent's attack with him, which is really good. And Koala, she can help you clear off a character, or you can just discard her for your leader ability. Like each of the 2Ks here have a purpose, not just for defensive use. But when you get to the late game, you have to think: is it better to use my leader ability and put more Dawn on my characters to attack? To either take out cards from your opponent's hand, or put a lot of pressure in end game, or do I just use my leader's ability, swing for just the extra 3,000, and then play an NL or play an or play another card? So that's going to depend again on your matches. If there was something that I would change from this deck, it would probably be adding some blockers, so maybe like some Sanjis, or some. The revolutionary package does include some blockers, so and so does the Sky Island, and those are the blockers that cost two. So the little ones, those can be potentially a good cards to add into this deck just to increase the survivability. Um, and if that were the case, I would probably add the revolutionary blockers over the Sky Island blockers first, simply because like even if you don't need the blockers, you can discard the revolutionary cards, revolutionary blockers, and still be able to use Betty's ability. And if that was the case, I would probably put down, let's say, take out like an Inazuma, or take out maybe one Morley, and one Lindbergh, and then just add like the blockers. That way you still have like the main trigger cards, just a little bit less of them, and then you have your blockers that you can play just in case you need to defend yourself. But yeah, this is pretty much the deck. Um, I'm gonna go into the gameplay, but I really hope you guys kind of enjoy the gameplay that we're about to see. I'll try my best to kind of explain my decision making, and just hope you guys can see how this deck works and see that, unlike normal Betty list, you don't lose your hands so much. Anyways, thank you for watching up to now, and stay tuned for the gameplay. Okay, so we are gonna start with Law, going against Law. We are going first, so we'll probably keep our biddies here. Law is a little bit hard because they can easily just bottom deck our little guys, but that just means they have less Dawn to work with. So we'll go here. We have a 3. I think we'll look at Lindbergh here. Depending on our next draw, we might just play another Betty. Yeah, we're just going to play Betty into Shura. So we're going to attack first, especially since he has Gordon here. I don't want to commit to Morley. And honestly, this will just we'll probably just discard him to give everything plus 3k. So I'm going to search with this first. We're going to get Ivankov. And then we're gonna play this guy, and we're gonna get I think we're gonna get NL here. Okay. So we'll probably just buff all these 3 guys next turn. We are gonna block, just because I don't want to lose cards with what's his name? Law. Purple Law. Okay. Alright, so I put down Shura. I think we will still go ahead as planned. We're just going to play the Holly and attack for 7k with leader, and then next turn we'll play the Sabo. We'll see. We'll see what we do. I'm gonna discard this. We're gonna give these guys +5. We're just gonna attack. Cool. Alright, that's good. We got 2 cards from hand. So we'll attack for 7k. Then we'll just play the Holly. We don't want to commit too much here. Holly's more of a bait for Gordon. And if he doesn't take the bait, then we'll just kill it with Sabo. So it's not a big deal. So going to attack face, that's fine. I think we'll do this. and we'll prevent him from searching. I think we still want to take this. We don't want to activate that just yet. We might be able to use our ability. Okay, there we go. We got the Gordon out. So that's good. Okay, so we brought this guy out. Okay. We can kill him easily with Sabo. I guess it'll depend what he does here, if he's gonna defend him or not. Alright. Now we can do Eno. But I do want to take him out. I think we're just gonna attack and then KO this. So we're gonna discard our Limburg and put these guys at 5. It's because we need to start taking cards. Life. Okay. I think this is good. So those Bettys are putting in the work here. Alright, now he's trying to clear the little guys, which is good for us, I guess. And he got a 2k counter. Okay. And he got a normal law. Okay. So I think this... Alright. I don't think this law is gonna live. Or I mean, the Sambo. Yeah, he's going back to the bottom. He has no cards. Alright. This is what we'll do. Maybe this could be game if he takes this. Oh no. Kind of messed up. Never mind. Alright, we'll see what he does here. Okay. We should have enough counters in hand. We'll drop Beppo. Okay. We can counter out of that just to keep us safe. I think we can take that. We will not trigger. So even if he puts a blocker, we can get through it. Ooh. I think I'm gonna block this. Just because I want to life up in case he tries to remove him. Alright. GG's. So those Bettys put in a lot of work. Alright, so I'm going to choose to go second because that's what we want to do. We have our Shura, which is good. I think this is fine. So we have our we have a 4-drop here. We might go with Ohm. We already have an NL, so we don't need another one. 2k might be good, but we'll go with Ohm. If we can get the dog here, that'd be amazing. But if not, it's okay too. I'll take care of that. Do I want to use the ability here? Let's attack here first. Okay. That's fine. Let's go with nothing. Okay. So that was a with. And we're gonna end our turn there. Yeah, I always like to, even though we lost one to Thunderbolt, I think it's better than losing him now than discarding a card. Another Ohm, okay. At least our Ohm is at 6k now. Okay, so he got his Holy. Okay. Let's see what he does. Now I can go Karasu and Betty. I think I might just do that. Okay, we could have gone the Holy here, but it's okay. I don't know if he wants Sabo. We'll take Sabo. We can just discard him anyways. And then we'll attack for 6. Now he has to use 2 cards if he wants to defend, or he'll be at 1 next turn. Okay. Alright, so let's see how this will go. Yeah. It all boils down to what's in the triggers for going against NL. So it's best not to go all in completely. He got 7 done, so he probably wants to play Big Mom. He forgot this is a 6k. Good for us. Okay. So he's not going for... Do we defend here? Do we want him to put more Dawn? I think so. I think we'll do... We're gonna lose this for sure. Yeah, we'll see. Okay. Oh, block here. It's okay. Alright. So we're gonna discard this. Make it harder for him. Okay. think we won. There you go. Easy peasy. Easy peasy. Alright, so we are going against Katakuri. Go second. We have our own combo here, so I think we're gonna keep it. Despite not having like a searcher early on. But this is pretty strong. And we take the first hit, so maybe, hopefully we get a trigger here. Okay, wonder what he's waiting for. Okay, so we actually got a searcher, which is good for us. And we got another Holly. So we can double ohm next turn and the turn after. That's pretty good. Alright. That's really good. Just gonna play Peros. Okay, nothing, but we're developing our board right now, so that's good. Another home. That's pretty interesting. Okay. No holy. But it's okay, we got this. Okay. And we got NO, okay. I think we need to block this one. Okay, we can't. We absolutely cannot. Alright. I'm gonna discard. I'm gonna play Inazuma. Now the question is, do we go all in? One of them has to kill, I think, the Sparrow. I'm gonna do. We'll do here. Okay. Draw Katakuri. Still can't play it. Okay, so this is what we'll do. We're gonna play Inazuma. We are gonna trash this. And then we are going to do this. So nice. 5. I'll do another 5. We're gonna play Betty next turn. And then okay. Alright. So we have a full board now. 1, 2, 3, 4 targets for our ability. He's probably going to try and go for game here. He kind of has to, Oh no, he's tagging Inazuma. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Didn't it go for Holy? Oh no. Sure, that's cool too. Okay, so we can Ohm or we can Enel. Ohm or Enel? Ohm or Enel? Let's do Betty first, actually. Because I'm probably going to end up playing Enel, unless we get another Inazuma. And in that case, we can just attack easily. Yeah, let's just do this. Okay. We'll get this then. We're gonna discard. And that's it. Do 5. I want to get rid of that Sanji, that's for sure. Alright. Wow. That was it. He had no counters. He just had big bones, big bones. Wow. That's insane. Cool. It all kind of boils down to what's on the triggers against yellow, but we had a full board, which was the whole plan. And we had the Ohms and the Hollies. And we had the little guys, the Shuras putting in the work, and the Biddies and the Enels. So that's kind of how the deck works, really. I'm sure there's ways to still further refine the deck, but I think overall it kind of serves what I planned for the deck. You know, summon little guys, attack with them, and then put out your big guys. So hope you guys enjoyed the deck, and like and subscribe. Thank you.